Hey YouTube, how's it going? I'm back with another multiplayer game with Node.js and Unity tutorial, part 8. And today we're going to be working on hooking up lobbies. So the idea for lobbies for our game is that players will be able to come into the main menu, they'll be able to join a queue or just join a game. The lobby will try and put them into a lobby that has room for the player, and if not, then they'll create a lobby for them to join. We're not going to go much further in terms of like pre-game lobbies and that sort of stuff. It's more just keeping the mechanics we have and implementing lobbies, because there's a lot of server-side restructuring that we're going to be doing. Again, make sure that if you guys are a little bit lost in the video, or if I'm going a little too fast, make sure you check out the GitHub link down below. I'll be posting a branch for branch 8, especially since it's going to be a lot of server-side changes. You might have to go through there and check that out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our server here. If you have any other tabs open for the server, just go ahead and close them. Just keep the index.js open. And we're going to be working through each individual file, making the changes we need to do, as well as adding the new ones we need to restructure the server. So right now the server is 204 lines of code. And our goal here is to get down to about just under 40. And the reason behind that is that index should mainly be setting up I/O, and we should be feeding things into a server class that then feeds into game lobbies. And then the lobbies kind of handle the code, right? So when you first connect to the game, you might be put into just a generic lobby. Not necessarily a game lobby. This could just be, hey, you know what? I've actually connected to our server lobby, okay? After that, we'll join queue, and we'll get put into a game lobby, okay? And then those all will live under the server. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of comment out a bunch of stuff. And the idea behind the commenting is that we're going to be using a lot of the code that we've written already. Just we're going to be putting it in different places and making a few adjustments for the lobby stuff. Okay, so we're just going to comment out that. So we're going to comment out the variables, go all the way to the bottom above function interval. We still want function interval. Okay. And we're going to comment that guy out. So right now, if you were to join, you probably wouldn't even get a join message because we don't have the I/O stuff, but basically the server will start, it will do the command for starting. Okay, so we're going to create a new class called server. So if you go into your folder here for server, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call this server.js. Okay, so the goal for the server is where we had a lot of stuff stuck in index, we're going to be kind of feeding that into the server. And then it's going to have a little bit extra functionality for creating lobbies and all sorts of stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our module.exports. And I'm going to be going pretty fast because we've gone through a lot of this stuff. So like I said, just try and keep up. If you want to go look at the GitHub stuff for what I'm doing per class, because I'm only going to explain stuff where I need to explain it. I don't think I need to explain a lot of the code that we've already written or explain this sort of stuff because we've gone over it already. So I'm just going to more just kind of type and do that sort of stuff. Okay, so in the server we're gonna have a couple of things. So we're gonna have connections. So that's anybody who's connected to the game. So rather than kind of feeding everybody into a player class, we're still gonna have the player class, but we're gonna have an overarching class called connection. And the reason behind the connection is it's gonna kind of link in weird ways everybody together. So player, if I ever need access to the server or to my game lobby, I should be able to go through connection and all those variables will be set and I can call functions that way and keep it more object-oriented programming. Okay, cool. So we're going to create that, and then just for now, we're going to create interval update every 100 milliseconds. And we'll just call this on update. So before in our index.js, we are calling an interval. Now we're going to kind of pass that into server.onUpdate. Okay. So the whole goal for this was the first thing we want to create is our server. So we're going to say server, and we got to make sure that we bring in the server class. So I'm going to be using the let keyword. It basically works the same way as var. So you're going to see me do a lot more changes that way, but if you want to use var, it's up to you. And you'll notice that I'll probably drop the semicolons when I'm doing a require because they're not needed as well. Okay. Say classes, and we'll say server. Okay, so server is going to be server. And then, so we left the interval function already there, so we can still do our set interval. And we're going to say this is 100 milliseconds, and it'll just kind of run forever. And this is going to say server dot on update. Okay, cool. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is, because I'm going to be retyping stuff, I'm actually just going to get rid of all these comments. But just know we're going to be using this functionality. I'm just going to be retyping it out, or I'll be copying and pasting, that sort of stuff. Just know that this functionality wasn't useless. We are going to be reusing it, or just putting it somewhere else. Okay. All right, so we create the new server. We set up the interval to update the server every 100 milliseconds, and then we have our standard interval function there. Okay, so the last thing we kind of need, part of this part, is the IO connection event, just because we have reference to IO here. After that, they're kind of just socket events that we set up, and that will get passed into the connection class that I was talking about before. So we're going to say socket, we're going to say IO.on, and we'll do our connection. Cool. And, oh, my bad. Okay, cool. So the idea here is that we're going to feed into the server saying that somebody's connected, passing in the socket. We're going to get back a connection. We're then going to have the connection create all the events. So all the ones we had before, like fire bullet, update position, update rotation, disconnection, all that sort of stuff. And then we're going to emit back to the client the register that we were doing before. So to create the connection class, we're going to go into classes here. We're going to hit add, hit connection.js. And we'll just start this guy up. We'll have a constructor, and the constructor is going to hold reference to the socket. It's going to hold reference to the player. It's going to hold reference to the server, and reference to the lobby. So like I was saying before, like if you're doing like a dungeon crawler and stuff, the lobby could be an individual dungeon. It could be an instance, it could be a boss, or like boss dungeon, it can be any type of map you want. I'm just going to use the word lobby throughout this whole course. Okay, so for the connection, we're gonna have a create events function. And I'm just going to copy the little comment here. So basically the idea is that it handles all our IO events, and where should we route them to be handled. And that's kind of like the main thing this really does, is just kind of that connection thing. So you're going to see a lot as well as I will grab reference. Instead of using the word keyword this, I'll grab reference to connection. Sometimes when you have inline functions, using the key, not storing this as a variable, it'll lose its reference, it'll become undefined. So you'll see a lot that I'll have inline functions here for the disconnect and stuff, and just know that's the reason why I store it. So I tend to do that for a lot of functions. So we're going to store reference to the socket, we're going to store reference to the server, and we'll store reference to the player. So you'll notice that I don't I don't store reference to the lobby, and that's because if any of these get changed, this only happens like that one time that I call create events. So because the lobby is always going to be changing, like you're going to be in the entry lobby, you're going to be in game lobby 1, game lobby 2, etc. as you're playing the game, it's always going to be changing. So you can't store the reference here. Instead, I'd have to do connection.lobby when I use it in the inline functions here. Okay, so we're going to set up socket on, we're going to do our disconnect. And a lot of good things here is that a lot of this is just all server side. Like we're gonna have very little client stuff to do. We're just gonna make a little UI really quick. Okay, so we're gonna have, I'm just gonna go ahead and make a bunch of these. So we're gonna have a new one for when somebody, so the idea is that when you open up the game, you'll have a button called join now, and then you're gonna join like a lobby. So don't worry about the functionality of this right now. Just know that we will have a new event. All the rest will be the same that you're used to. And I haven't put the data in the function yet, so we'll go back and do that. Make sure you do that. Okay, so we got update position. Update rotation. Okay, so this guy has data. So if you go back and look at your previous functions, I'm not changing anything new or which ones need data. They're all there. Okay, so the join game doesn't really need data because we have reference to which socket this is because this is the connection of the player. Okay, so we're going to save that for now. We're going to go to the server. So, like I said, there's an on update, and the next thing we want to do is have the on connected. So, we're going to have a function here called on connected, and this is just handling a new connection to the server. So, when the I/O does the on connection, it passes the server, so or the socket. So we're going to pass in the socket here. Let's paste that little comment for everybody as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, so right now we just set up some functions in connection. We set up some skeleton stuff in server, and then we're going to kind of fill it out as we need it. So in the I/O connection request here, we're going to say let connection equal to server.onConnected. That's why we need the function, and we're going to pass in socket. So I/O connection gets the socket, passed into the server socket. We're going to have some code here, and then it's going to return a new connection request for the player based on the socket. So we'll fill that out. You don't really need to worry about that too much. And then just for now, we're going to say connection.create events. And if you don't really get, you won't get the IntelliSys because we don't really have it brought in, or if it's never been used before in VS Studio, the VS Code. Don't really worry about it. Just make sure that is the same create events, and then you'll be okay. Okay, and then we're going to go connection, and remember inside of it had socket, and we're going to say emit register. And before we were passing in the player, but if you go back and look at network client in the C# class, we're really only passing the ID. So I'm just gonna pass in the ID here. We're gonna say connection dot, it has reference to the player, and inside the player we have its ID. Okay, cool. Beautiful. So we have connected, it's gonna pass us back to connection. We're gonna create the events for the connection, and then just like before, we're gonna pass in as registered. So now it'll create some sort of, it'll set the like client ID and stuff in the client. Okay. So we're gonna go to the server, and we're gonna fill out a little bit more skeleton like functions that we're gonna need. So we're gonna have an on disconnected. And it's going to take in a connection. So I'm going to kind of do like a strong type here. And so I'm going to bring in connection with the require. Okay. So by doing this, connection equals connection to class, it's saying that my parameter that's coming in has to be of type connection. So it does like a little bit of safety checking, I guess, in a sense, for you. So we're going to do on disconnected. We're going to have a function called on attempt to join game. That's also connection. You're going to notice a lot of these functions take in connection. It just helps with routing stuff. And then the last one we're going to have for the server is on switch lobby. Take in a connection. And then this one's going to pass in the lobby ID. Okay. Beautiful. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to open up the player class. And most of the player class stuff here is going to stay the same. We're just going to make a couple adjustments. The first one, I'm just going to put default underscore player. Right now it's just blank, so whenever you do any logs or whatever, it's a blank character or colon or whatever. So this will look more appropriate in the console. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to add the lobby that we're connected in. So I'm going to put this below ID because it's important, but I mean it's not. And default this to 0. So 0 is going to be like your entry connection. Like I said before, everything is considered a lobby, but like your general connection to the server is going to be a connection at lobby 0. And then the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to have a little function called display player information. And this is just, I found when I was writing the tutorial, I was doing a lot of console where I would do this with the open bracket. I would say like the username of the player. I would do the colon, like I was saying before, and then I would do the ID, and then close it. And I was just doing it so much that I was like, why don't I just write a function for that? So yeah, we're gonna have that. You can leave the respawn counter and you can leave the damage as well. Those are all useful and helpful for us for this tutorial. Okay, so we're gonna go back into server. I'm gonna bring in the player. We're gonna need it when we start writing, so I'm just gonna bring him in now. Go. And let's start filling out some information here. So, like I was saying before, when you start the game and you connect to it, it's going to do server on connection. The goal is that it's going to return a connection request, which is why we need the player and we need connection itself besides all these functions that are asking for it. So, the first thing we want to do is in the onConnected, we're going to go let connection equal to new connection. We're going to say connection dot socket is socket. Connection dot player is equal to new player, and doesn't require anything. This will allow it to generate its ID similar to how we had it in the old server. And then we're going to say connection dot server, and we're going to pass it this. Okay. Let's grab reference to the player that we just made. And we're also going to create a couple arrays. So in the constructor, the server is going to store what I was saying before. It's going to store connections and lobbies. Okay. And the idea is that lobbies kind of do all the logic for you, AI, anything to do with the lobby. The server just wants to know who's connected, have reference to all the connections, and have all the lobbies that are opened and in use so it can do updates. So we're going to say this is equal to a new array, and we're going to say this dot lobbies, and I'm going to use the this version. I know you can do IES, but I'm gonna do this one. Okay, and then later on we're gonna do we're gonna make the intro lobby here as well. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so we're gonna come back down here and we're gonna say let lobbies equal to this dot lobbies. And like I said before, if you're using this keyword a lot, just have that reference to server. So I could be like let server equal to this, and then I could just do that, and it looks a little bit like more readable than seeing like this keyword everywhere. Cool. Okay, so let's do a log. Just like before, that we've added the new player. Added new player to the server. Okay, so we're gonna add the player ID here. And just kind of close that off. Okay, we're gonna say server.connections. And we're gonna assign this at player.id. So this is like before where it's like it's assigned directly to that specific slot. It's being mapped to it. We're gonna say that's a connection. We're gonna do a little check here. So we're gonna do so one of the new concepts here to do with lobbies is in Socket.io they have like a namespace that you can send events to. In order to do that, you have to kind of join it. So you're going to be seeing this new keyword for the socket called join here, where we're joining different lobbies. So as you switch different lobbies, we're going to be changing this join to that lobby number. So we're going to say player.lobby. And that should match with this change that we did here in the player class. Okay. So socket.lobby, we'll go connection.lobby is equal to lobbies at player lobby. So we're going to set our connection to the new lobby we joined, and then connection.lobby. And we're gonna have a function called onEnterLobby. Don't worry about it right now, because we haven't made the lobbies yet, and it takes a little bit of explanation. But just know it's gonna have an onEnterLobby, and it's gonna take in the connection here, and then we're gonna return connection. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go over lobbies and kind of what we're gonna be doing for them. So under classes, I want you to create a new folder called lobbies, and you'll see I used the IES version this time. And inside there, we're gonna have a new class called lobby base. Put that guy over here. We're gonna have a new game lobby.js. And the last one, the game lobby is going to take in some settings. So think of playing a typical shooter. You'll have free-for-all, you'll have team deathmatch, you'll have capture the flag, and they generally all play the same. They just have different settings. So game lobby, in this sense, is like a traditional shooter where it could be a team deathmatch or a free-for-all lobby. So we're going to have a game lobbies setting class. So those are the three. They're going to be under the folder lobbies here. And we're going to go to lobby base. So the idea here is we're going to be using a little bit of inheritance. And using inheritance, we're going to have some base functionality that all lobbies will have. And then from there, you can have game lobbies. You can have instance game lobbies. You can have private game lobbies. You can do whatever you want. So while the game settings kind of define the game lobby in a sense that your game might need something else to put players into, you might need a different class that's not just game lobby, or you might have a different version of game lobby or something to go with that. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just bring in connection here. keep in mind I'm doing 2 decimal places. Let's go back a folders. So now we have folders here, and bring in the connection. Bring in the modules here, and we're going to call this lobby base structure. It's going to take in the ID here. And we're going to say this.id is equal to ID. So it needs to know its lobby number, essentially, where it fits in the index. And then this is also going to have connections. So the server has connections to everybody in the game. Lobbies have connections to everybody in their lobby, right? So if you have 5 lobbies, 25 players, and there's 5 players in each lobby would have 5 connections in them. But the whole server would have 25 connections. There's just different references, put them in different rates, sort of thing. Okay, so make sure it's lowercase with an S here. Okay, so lobbies, they're going to want to update with our update time, which is every 100 milliseconds. So the game base lobby doesn't really do anything with this, but the idea is that all lobbies need on update, so it has this functionality here, right? All lobbies need on enter lobby, right? Everybody needs to be able to go in and out of lobbies. So we might as well put all our base stuff in here. We also want to leave lobby. Like I said, if I'm going a little bit fast, you can just check out the GitHub as well. Okay, cool. So let's fill this out a bit here. So we're going to say let lobby equal to this. Let player equal to connection.player. We're going to go to console.log, and we're going to bring in player. This is where I wanted the display player information like function, because I'm just going to be rewriting it so much that it's handy. And then it's handy to show which lobby ID we're in, right? Cool. Okay, so we're going to say lobby.connections, and we're going to push. You'll notice that I'm not mapping it here. You don't really need the map because we're going to be pulling connections in and out as they're leaving and joining lobbies. So it's a lot easier if you're just pushing it into it. So it's not mapped; it's just a standard array. Player.lobby is equal to the lobby's ID. Connection.lobby is equal to lobby. Cool. Okay, so we're going to copy. So that's the on enter, and the on exit's very similar. So I'm just going to copy this guy here. We're going to change this to left lobby. When you leave the lobby, we're just going to temporarily set the connections lobby to undefined in case you want to handle any weird cases where they're like in between limbo states. The last thing we're going to do is we have to remove the connection from the array. So rather than using the delete command that deletes like a mapped index like you would traditionally with the connections or the player ID, we can just use a standard splicing method for that. So we're going to say lobby.connections.index of connections. So this little function here goes through the array, finds reference to the connection, and then returns to us the index number of where it's located. If the connection is not in the array, it will return -1. So knowing that information, basically, if we're greater than -1, because it could be 0, because index starts at 0, or array starts at 0, as long as it's greater than -1, then we can splice the connection. And if for some reason it was never there, you could do like some error handling there, or whatever you wanted to do. So the splice method takes in the starting index and then asks how many you want to like eliminate from it. In this case, it's just 1, but there could be scenarios where you're just like, okay, go to this index and then just delete everything after that, or delete the next 5 or something. Card game seems very familiar with when you'd want that sort of logic. Okay. So now we have the base lobby. So base lobby kind of has 3 things it can do, and it handles IDs and connections. Okay, so let's go over to the game lobby now. So we're gonna bring in lobby base. So like standard traditional object-oriented programming, we're gonna be using a little bit of inheritance here. We're gonna be bringing in the game lobby settings just now. So we're just gonna do all our requires here, and they're all part of, oh, just one, there we go. We'll just bring in all our using statements, all our requires, using, whatever you want to call them. Notice when I use the double period to go back a folder, make sure you do that as well. So this, so for the game lobby, for this game example, we're going to be having bullets, right? Bullets are key reference, but a standard lobby doesn't need to know about bullets, but the game lobby does. Okay, so we're going to do module exports is equal to class game lobby, and then you're going to use the word extends lobby base. So it's going to be using standard inheritance, where it's going to use the base properties of lobby base. So basically it comes with ID, connections, and these functions. And then we're going to be adding functionality on top of that. So we're going to say constructor. And because we know lobby base needs an ID, we also need an ID. We're also going to be creating one called settings, and we're going to say this is game lobby settings. Like before, this is kind of strongly typed here, where we're looking for game lobby settings. Okay, so to reference the, I was just making sure that the constructor, this was bringing game lobby. Yeah, I guess it'll fix itself though. Okay, so in order to call the everything from, this is called the base class in JavaScript, we use the keyword super. So super by itself is just the constructor. So if I go super, it's like, oh, lobby base is looking for ID. Okay, cool. So we don't need the ID, so this one's gonna have settings. And then for the game itself, we need to know about bullets. And that's just gonna be a new array here. Okay, cool. So you can do a couple things. If you weren't gonna use the on update or something in this lobby, you don't need reference to on update. It will go automatically call lobby bases on update. But we need to do things like update bullets and stuff, so we're gonna be overriding this functionality. So by me putting on update, if I call on update to the game lobby somewhere else, it's gonna be calling this function and no longer even this one. So we're gonna say let lobby. So this, and we're gonna be doing a couple. We're gonna have a couple other functions here. We're gonna put down. So we're gonna have one called update bullets, update dead players. So if you remember from our original index.js, in our like little update function, we are updating the bullets, updating the players. We're just gonna kind of put them in their own little functions, so that way we can have it look super nice, where we can say lobby.update bullets, lobby.update dead players. And then if you ever need to like remove or have like a if check statement, it's much easier to wrap it this way than to wrap all the code that fits into there. Okay, so our game lobby is gonna have function called canEnterLobby. Okay. And the canEnterLobby connection basically gives you functionality if we can enter this lobby or not. So maybe in the game settings, you can't enter it unless you're a certain level. Or you can't enter if we have 5 players already. Or you can't enter if you're not a friend of the host or something. Or like the person that created the lobby or something. I don't know. But this gives us functionality that we'll call and we'll, before we assign them to the lobby, we'll go, hey, can we enter this lobby? And it's basically going to return true or false. So we're going to say let lobby with this. And for our check sake, we're going to have a player count. So we're going to say that in the settings, when we make the lobby, we're going to have a max player count. And don't worry about me just kind of typing here because we haven't got to this class yet. Just kind of follow along where it's lobby.settings.maxPlayers. We'll grab reference to the current player count. And because it's an array and not mapped objects like before, we can say lobby.connections.length. Okay. If current player count +1, so we're simulating if we added the player. If we're greater than the player count, then we can't add the player, right? We've reached max players. But if this was equal to player count, so if we added the player and the player count was 5, or we added this, the player count is now 2 of 5, then we'll return true. Okay. All right, so we have functionality from the lobby base that we'd like to add to. Okay. So right now in the on lobby enter, we essentially take the connection in, we push it into our array, we change the IDs for the player, we change the IDs for the connection to know that it's, hey, you're in a new lobby. But we need to do, like, in certain cases, if you're making dungeon crawler, you might have loot on the ground, or you might have enemies and stuff. So you might need to spawn that sort of stuff for the player. So this essentially is just giving you that functionality. So we're going to say we still want the functionality from the super because it's super handy. Super handy. So we're going to call the supers version of this, and keep in mind this is a connection here. So we're going to pass in the supers connection. Then we're going to say lobby dot, we're going to have a function called add player. So in our original code, we do an add, like this is where we do our spawning for the player, where we tell ourselves we spawn, we tell everybody else we spawn, and then we go through and tell our player about everybody else that's already in the game. So that's what the add player here is going to be about. And then I'm just going to copy and paste a nice little tip here. This is basically where you would handle spawning of any server-side spawning objects. This could be things like loot, perhaps flying bullets, etc. It's up to you how you want to handle that. Cool. And I'm just going to copy. There's no need to kind of type out the same stuff here. So we're going to have the on leave lobby connection, and basically it's we're looking for the super leave lobby. We're going to be having a function called remove player, and you're going to be handling spawning. So in a dungeon crawler, you would say, okay, yeah, they had loot in this room. When they leave the room, you don't want to have the loot spawn there because you're no longer in that room, so you'd unspawn the loot here. But the loot could be still stored in the game lobby in case you came back. Cool. So let's add these two other functions here. We'll add the add player and the add remove player here as well. So we'll go add player, there'll be a connection. This will just be skeleton stuff. And we'll go ahead and fill those out here in a second. Okay, so we're gonna leave this for a second. We're gonna come back. We're gonna go to game lobby setting, and we're gonna start filling that out. So this is a super small class, so I'm just gonna kind of copy and paste it here for you, and do a little bit of explaining. Basically, it's gonna take in a game mode. This is just more of a tag, but this could be anything that you want. This could just be a JSON file if you want. I just like the class structure in case you wanted some functionality to it. So in this case, we're just gonna have a tag for the game mode, and we're gonna have a tag for max players. We're only really using max players to check if you can join the lobby. In the future, it could be levels, requirements, arbor requirements, whatever you want to do based on your game. So we're gonna save that under game lobby settings, and we're gonna come back to game lobby, and we're gonna start filling in our old functionality. So in our index, we had a little update for the bullets here. So we're gonna say let lobby. Grab reference to bullets. Grab reference to the connections. Cool. So we can go. We can say for each tab, say bullets, tab, bullets. Then I'm going to hit down on the arrow key. We're going to say let is destroyed. If I could spell destroyed here. Bullet dot on update. If is destroyed. We're gonna have our function. We're gonna bring over that function that was the despawn bullet. So I'm just gonna put it here for now, and we'll add it. We'll add it here in a minute. So you notice a lot of functionality got moved from index to game lobby itself, and this allows you to create different lobbies and dungeons and stuff like I was mentioning, and being able to reuse the code and be able to keep it very structured apart where it's more object oriented. So this shouldn't look too odd to you. This is exactly what we had before. And I'm just similarly typing it out. You can probably, if you didn't delete your stuff there, you could just simply copy and paste it as well. The only change that you're going to have to make here is this part here, where you now have to change it to connections dot for each. Say connection. Give it an arrow function. Say, so the connection, remember, has reference to our socket. Let's say dot emit. Updating the position, we'll pass in the turn data. Beautiful. So yeah, the only change most of your changes here, like functionality code-wise, will stay the same. Most of it's going to be around where you're emitting. You're going to notice we're going to be using a new keyword after broadcast called to, and that will let you set that namespace for that room that you joined. So we're going to be grabbing. I'm just going to do a lot of pasting because a lot of this is very similar to what we had before. So we don't need to really talk about it too much. Let's say player is equal to connection.player. So you'll notice like little things like where I'll have to be like, oh, now it's connection.player instead of like players at player ID. So just keep an eye on that when you are copying and pasting, that you are going back and not just assuming that it's going to work once you change it. Because a lot of that stuff does have to get changed around. Okay, so for respawning, we're going to say let socket equal to connection.socket. Return data. What do we got here? So this will just be the player stuff. Put that in there. Okay, so at the bottom of return data, we're going to do socket.emit player respawn. Socket.broadcast. Okay, so we're going to be using a new function, like I said, .2. And basically this allows us where, instead of broadcasting to everybody, we're broadcasting to everybody inside this channel. So we use that keyword, the socket.join before, and we set it to the lobby ID. So this is saying basically anybody else is in this lobby, you can have this message. Other people don't get this message. Beautiful. Okay, we're just gonna go through, we're gonna add a couple other functions here, then we'll finish off the new one. These are basically just, like I said before, they're more or less bringing the old functionality that we already had here, so I don't need to explain it too much. I probably am pretty good at just copying and pasting that. So basically, like before, we create any bullets, assign the activator, the position, the direction. We push it into lobby bullets, so that will be a change if you're copying and pasting it. Then we have the return data, should be good, and then keep in mind, now we have to do connection.socket based on where we are, and we have the 2 after the broadcast now for broadcasting to those in the same lobby. So make sure you do note those changes. Pause the video now, write that out. Okay, so then we're gonna add the on collision destroy. So you're gonna see a lot of these are the events that we have, and they're gonna be funneled into the lobby that we're in. So I'm just gonna copy and paste the on collision destroy here. Again, like before, we're gonna filter out the bullets based on the ID for the collision checks. We're going to go through all the return bullets, which most likely will be 1, like we said before. We're going to say that we haven't hit a player yet. We're going to go through all the players in the lobby, not in general, just the lobby. We're going to grab that connection that we're looking through the player, making sure it's not the activator here. We're going to check the distance like before. If it's less than 0.65, it's theoretically a hit. We do some damage, check if it's dead. If it's dead, we're going to emit that the guy's died. We're going to emit to everybody in the lobby that he's died. If not, we just console out how much health they have left, and we're going to despawn the bullet, which we haven't wrote yet. And then this is the natural is destroyed or not. So if we didn't hit a player but we got a collision, we're going to destroy it naturally. Cool. Same thing with the despawn. So I believe this actually is a function in our index here. So we're going to have the despawn bullets. So it's going to take in basically, it's going to output that we're destroying the bullet by the ID. We're going to grab the index of the bullet. If it happens to be in that array, it'll be higher than -1. We'll splice it out, and we'll send to everybody to server unspawn. Okay, the unspawn bullet. Okay, cool. So now we're down at this add and remove stuff. So we're gonna just add this guy here. So we're gonna say add player. We're gonna say lobby. Grab the connections. Grab the socket. And you're like, whoa, how do you like know how to do all this stuff? So I don't. I just, as I'm starting and realize, hey, I need reference to socket, or hey, you know what? I found that I'm writing the word connection on socket more than once. Then I'll store this variable up here for ease of reading and stuff. So when you're doing the JSON stuff, you can do it in quotes. You can do it without quotes. It's up to you, by the way. So we're going to say the ID. We're going to say connection.player.id. So you're going to notice before I used to pass in like the player object. Now I'm actually going to pass in what data it needs, just to be a little bit more performant. Alright, so we're going to do our spawning. So this is going to look very familiar to our other spawning method. This is tell myself I have spawn. Or broadcast to people in the lobby. That we have spawned. This is tell others. And then tell myself about everyone else already in. So this should look familiar. This isn't really nothing new here that we were doing. Oh, so make sure it's connections, by the way, there. And we already have reference to a variable called connection, so we're going to be using C. You notice that I'll use that a bit if we already have connection being used, then I'll use the word C. Right? Check to make sure that it's not our guy. If it's not, then we can send to our socket, right? So, I mean, it's like one of the first tutorials that we did here. And you'll notice that I don't use, I'm not going to use return data because I have to use the current player and I'm not sending my stuff to them. So we'll just have our own little function, like our own little inline JSON here, and we'll say ID, and this is going to be equal to cplayer.id. So remember again, it's not our guy. We're sending other people to our guy here. Okay, cool. We're going to go to let lobby equals this. Connection.socket.broadcast.to lobby.id. Disconnected. This is the ID. We'll say connection.player.id. Okay, cool. Woo! Okay. That's a lot. So we're gonna, now we've built out a lot of the game functionality for the game lobby, and we've transferred everything like from index over to basically the game lobby. We can kind of go back into server here and start doing that functionality now. So we'll start with the update. So keep in mind, remember, lobby base had on update, game lobby has update whether we put it in or not. So the idea here is we just grab reference to the server. Whoa. And we're just gonna update each lobby. So lobby is mapped. Remember, we mapped the lobbies here. So I have to use this for statement in order to grab the IDs. Server.lobbies at ID dot on update. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So this is just gonna go through all the lobbies, gonna update them, let them do their thing. We already did the on connected. We'll do the on disconnected now. So grab reference to this server. We'll say ID is equal to connection.player.id. First thing we're going to do is delete this. We're going to say server.connections at ID. So remember, if it's mapped, we can use the delete and remove it based on the key value here. Console.log, we can say player, we can say connection.player.display. Let me go to the player thing. What is this? Display player information. There we go. Okay, cool. We'll just say as disconnected. Beautiful. Alright, so we have to tell others in the current lobby that we've disconnected. So we have reference to ID. So all we're going to do is we're going to say connection socket broadcast 2. We're going to use the connection, the player lobby. Right? We don't really have reference to the lobby, but if we go through connection, it knows what lobby we're in. The player does, at least. We're going to send the disconnected, and we're going to send the ID, which is of the player. And the last thing we're going to do is perform lobby cleanup. So we're going to say server.lobbies at connection.player.lobby. We're going to leave the lobby on leave lobby. That requires a connection that we have. So, right, we're leaving, we disconnected, we're going to just let the lobby performance cleanup because we've left. Okay, cool. So, we're going to do the on switch lobby logic first, and then we're going to do the join one, just because it's a little bit longer. We're going to say, we're going to grab reference to server. We're going to grab reference to lobbies. I'm going to say server.lobbies. Okay, so we're going to say connection.socket, and we're going to join based on lobby ID. So we're going to join the new lobbies socket channel. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set reference to the lobby itself. So we're going to say lobbies at lobby ID. Assign reference to the new lobby. Whoa, too many B's. Connection.player.lobby .onLeave lobby and lobbies at lobby ID. So this is like we're leaving the old lobby, so that's why we can't use lobby ID. But then the new lobby we want to enter, right? So we'll say enter lobby and we'll connection. So we do all the setting for the player and stuff, so they're all ready to go. Then we're going to leave the lobby, and then we're going to enter the new lobby. Okay. So, attempting to join a game. So this is part of our new UI that we're going to do inside of the client, where we're going to join. We're going to have a button just like, hey, join game. And it's going to be like, okay, let's join the game. So this is the logic where we're going to be checking the, can we enter this lobby? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look through lobbies for a game lobby. So we're going to have, in lobbies, we're not necessarily having all game lobbies. We're going to have an instance of lobby base where the entry lobby is. Then we're going to have game lobbies. You could have other lobbies. So in this scenario, on the attempt to join here, we want to look for just game lobbies. We're going to check if it's joinable. If not, make one. Cool. Let server equal to this. Let lobby found equal to false. Let game lobbies. So we're going to do a filtering technique where we're going to go through all the lobbies and we're going to filter out. So we're just going to say, you can say lobby, you can say items. I'm just going to say item here. And we're only going to return item if it's an instance of game lobby. And I don't know, we might have to check if I have, we haven't brought it in yet. Okay, so now that we've created all the lobby stuff, if you go back up to the top, it's not going to show you in the IntelliSys, but we have to go back up to the top. I like, when I have a bunch of this stuff, like when I do weapons and lobbies and stuff, or do any sort of inheritance and that general stuff, I kind of separate it from the main chunk. So I'll have like, let lobby base. And while they might not be used now, it's always good to have all the references. You'll find in the server, at least for here, you'll probably need it. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna do game lobby and then game lobby settings. Change these required statements to them. Okay, so now you'll see I'm using game lobby. And while we're here, now that we have these classes created, we're gonna make that initial one that I was saying before. So we're gonna say game lobbies, we're gonna map it to 0. And we're gonna say as a new lobby base. That's in 0. So this is gonna be your entry connection that you connect to is at 0. And it's a lobby base because we don't need things like firing bullets and all that jazz, right? Because you don't even have a player spawn, you're just kind of a connection. So beautiful. Okay, let's come back down to the on attempt join here. Okay, so we filtered out this. Next thing we're gonna do is, for ease of time here, we're just gonna have our console log to found how many lobbies are on this server here. And then we're gonna go through game lobbies. I'm gonna say for each game lobby that we have, and this is where we're gonna do our check. So if lobby not found, so we could be going through this, we could find a game in the first game and we're all handy dandy there, but if we haven't found one, we're gonna say let join. We're gonna say lobby dot can enter. Okay, so we're gonna do lobby dot can enter dot can enter lobby, and we're gonna pass in connection there. Okay, so that's our functionality that was checking the max players, right? So it's going to return true or false. We're going to say if can join, then lobby found is true. Server dot on switch lobby. We're going to say connection, and then we're going to pass it its new lobby ID. Beautiful. And okay. So that's good and nice and dandy if there's a game available for you to go. But what happens if there's a game, there's never been a game created, or blah, all the lobbies are full? Well, we want to create one, obviously. So we're going to say if we still have not found a lobby. We're in a console log making a new game lobby. Okay, so this is where you determine what kind of game lobby you're making. For now, we're going to just say it's a game lobby. The ID is going to be game lobbies.length. We haven't added it to it, so we're going to say +1. And then we're going to pass in some new game lobby settings. And then game lobby settings themselves takes in parameters. It takes in a string. So we're just going to say free for all, and we're going to say the max people is 2. So if you ever have more than 2 people, then it's going to create another lobby, right? Because then it won't be joinable. Okay, we're going to say server.lobbies.push game lobby and server.onSwitch lobby connection with the game lobby ID. So we're going to be putting in because we made the new game lobby here and we already changed the ID here, now we can use the ID and we'll have that switched. Okay, last thing to wire up is our connection stuff. And I know this is a total lot to handle. So if you do guys have any questions, make sure you join the Discord down below. Make sure you leave a comment and stuff. Just if you guys need any help, check out the GitHub, that sort of stuff. Like there's tons of resources for this stuff. Okay, so now that we've done all the functionality and stuff, let's start wiring these guys up. These are our standard commands we got, right? So when we have a disconnection, we have a server function called onDisconnected. It takes in a connection. So basically the idea of this is that it kind of just like routes all our events to where they need to go. So when you're joining the game, you're going to go to server on attempt to join game. And then we'll have our fire bullet. You'll say connection.lobby. So like I was saying before, because lobby's always getting changed, we can't store a reference to it. Which is why we have. And if you ever have like, if you're trying to like apply this to your game and you're trying to figure out, well, where do I need to route this? Think of like where it's happening and if it needs to happen more than once, right? Like server is general architecture, right? Lobbies handle individual games or individual dungeons and stuff. So just try and break it down as much as possible to there. Like if it's gameplay or not, then it's most likely a lobby. If it's not really gameplay related, then it might not be in the lobby. It'll be in the server. So on collision destroy. Did I? Oh, I totally renamed this wrong. Okay. Go back into game lobby. Go to on collision destroy. Right click, go to rename symbol, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys now to go to where destroy is, put the S in there, hit enter. What it does is it's going to change all the references everywhere else. So this can actually be the word destroy. Beautiful. Alright, so for the update position stuff, you don't really need to route this stuff. Eventually you're going to have validation stuff, so you're going to want to pass in the lobby. But for now, we're just going to be doing what we did before. We're going to be storing the data position into the player, and we're going to be broadcasting to the lobby. Remember, so that's the change, right? That we're broadcasting to a lobby and not to everybody, the update in the player. And same with the updated tank rotation. Boom. Right, tank rotation, barrel rotation, broadcast 2, and we should be good to go. So this was a lot to handle. I know that this is probably going to be multiple parts on YouTube itself. I think I've already hit an hour and a half recording. But we have a couple more things. Very simple introduction to the UI inside Unity. I'm going to be doing a whole series itself on Unity UI. So if you're not familiar with Unity UI, that will be helpful for those people. I'm going to be skipping over a lot of introduction stuff for the UI. So if you do need that refresher on what certain things do or what I'm doing, how is the UI appearing here, go check out that series when it is available. Okay, so I'm going to do shift and then the tilde. So control tilde. Bring up the console. I'm going to do npm start, so that fires my start function, and we have an error. Cool. So first error we have, so part of programming obviously is debugging. So we have game lobbies dot settings. Okay. That is inside. So I can already tell you it's wrong because of that reason. So the easiest way to change that is we're going to right click on the file here. We're going to go to rename. Okay, put the S there. Update the imports. We're going to say yep. And inside here was settings. So that was just my bad. I named the file game lobby setting. Make sure it is set to settings there. Okay, so after that's saved, the server has started. Yay! Okay, so we're just going to leave that there for now. I'm going to just kind of put that over to the side, and we're going to start doing our next thing. Okay, so we're going to switch back over to the client now, and we're going to be adding in a canvas, and we're going to be adding in a little bit of UI. So keep in mind, I'm going to keep everything in one scene, but in future tutorials, everything's going to be broken out into multiple scenes, so it's much easier to work with. So for now, we're just going to go create a nice canvas. It's going to bring in the event system. We are going to change constant pixels to scale with screen size. I like putting in 1920 by 1080, but it's up to you. And I'm going to set this to height of 1. Like I said, if this is all like new to you, we're going to be having a series on just the UI itself. So just kind of follow along. And that will give you more in depth on there. Okay, so we're going to create an object here. We're going to call it UI. And so in here, if you hold down Shift and Alt, so Shift moves the pivot. You'll see the little blue dot here. Alt kind of actually positions your content. So if I double click here, you'll be able to see our canvas, and inside our canvas we have a little box. So I'm going to be holding down Shift and Alt, so that's going to move pivot and the guy, and I'm going to do the bottom right here to go into all zeros. So it should be stretch, 0 all the way across. Even if you're new or whatever, like that's pretty nice to explain there. Okay, cool. Inside there, we're going to add image. We're just going to call this background. I'm going to color this like a dark gray. And I'm going to do the same thing where it covers the whole screen. Boom. Did I choose a gray that was... Oh, there we go. It was like almost perfect to that. Okay, so we're going to go back here. We're going to create a new empty called join panel. And I'm going to make this stretch with the screen, and these are just default numbers. I think it's like 400 by 550 or something, I forget, but we're going to do 760, 290, 760, 290. All it's saying is that we're going to be so many pixels from each one of these edges here. Okay, inside there we're going to have a background itself. So the whole screen, we'll give it a different color gray. Maybe it's a little transparent, I don't know. It doesn't need to look fancy, because when we get into other stuff, we're going to be making a nicer UI and it'll look a little bit better. So we are going to make an empty here. This is going to be called showing. This is going to be a button. So we're going to do, let's do 300 by 75. Nice button here. Call this join now, and I like to do, like, if it has functionality on it, like UI functionality, I like to have the dash what it is. Just personal preference. We're gonna add a button component. Take the transition, just put the none. You can use transitions, it doesn't matter. Just for this sample, you don't really need it, kind of blocks it. Okay, inside there, let's add a background here. Let's make it red or something. We'll make it the full width of the container by doing that. Name this the background. Then going back here, we're going to go into UI. I'm going to do a text mesh pro text and import the essentials here. There we go. So I brought my code window. Now it's brought in. We can just close that. I like Text Mesh Pro. It just adds a little bit more functionality when editing text and stuff. Okay, so we're going to go back and set this back here. So that should zero it all out. Center align, center mid here. And we're going to check this button here that makes it all caps. So whatever you type in here, it's going to make it all caps, which is super handy. We'll just leave the font size and the font itself there. And we'll rename this to join now dash text. Beautiful. Okay, so before we hook up the button, we're just going to add a little bit of new code here. So if you open up the network client class, I already have it open here. We're going to be adding a little bit of functionality here to the bottom. So we're going to be adding a new function. So like I said, in the future, it's going to be probably going to be changed. So this is just very temporary, but basically we need to take in the button input and then feed it to our server. So we're going to have a function called attempt to join lobby. And because we already have reference to our socket here, we're just going to say emit. Make sure this is properly spelt to match our new function of join game with lowercase j. Save. So in order to set up events, you have to wait until the bottom right here, that little spinny thing, is done compiling. Otherwise, your event won't show. So if we go to the button here, we are going to bring in, you're going to hit the little plus here, and you're going to drag in from the hierarchy the network code here. We're going to select network client, attempt to join lobby. If you don't see it, you're more likely still waiting to compile. So just like click off into your scene or whatever, and just wait till it's done. The other thing we're going to do is we're just going to quickly grab this UI from the canvas, and we're going to set its active. It's not checked, so that means it's off, and it's just going to turn off the UI after you hit join now. Like I said, a lot of the functionality is more just like rearranging the server and stuff, and this is just more of showing, hey, you know what, we can switch lobbies when we hit join now. Okay, so I have the server running, and we now have the join now button. So if you hit play, and hopefully you've been following along the whole way, we'll have a connection made to the server, and I have an error. So inside server on line 38, we have an error there. Added new player to that, we have player.id. And it can't read property of ID that's undefined. Okay. Hey, what's going on, guys? So Okay, so I figured out the issue here. So up here in connection, everything should be lowercase. So make sure it's lowercase dot socket, lowercase player, and lowercase server. We're gonna hit save here. So I already had the game running, so it's gonna be connected there. So when you load in, you'll see that. I'm gonna just stop the game here, and we have left the lobby. I'm gonna put that off to the side. Okay, so we're gonna start that up. We've joined the lobby, and now when we hit join now, we're gonna get a couple of things. I'm just gonna bring this over here. So we've entered the lobby. It says we found 0 lobbies on the server because no games are created. So we're gonna make a new one, and then it's gonna say, okay, we left 0, and now we've entered number 1. So now, if I turn on another game here. We're going to see that, that this new player has joined the game and they entered 0. So they're no longer in our game. So I'm just going to kind of drive around, and I'm going to hit on my other screen, I'm going to hit join now. And now you'll see that I've now joined the game. And if I shoot, you'll see that we're still shooting. And if I shoot our player, he'll respawn. There we go, off screen obviously like the other tutorials, and we're all nice and dandy. Okay, so now if I bring in a third game, so let's bring in a third guy here. So we're gonna bring in the third editor, and this is gonna be cool. So now we have 2 guys in this game, and I bring this editor in. So this is our third editor, okay. And now we've connected, and we still have 2 guys there, and we're gonna hit join now, and we're by ourselves, right? So if I bring in here, we're gonna say this guy entered the lobby, went to 0. We found 1 lobby, but unfortunately that game was full. And so we're going to make a new lobby. So we left and we went into game number 2. So now I have 2 games playing, where if this guy, let's see if I can bring this here. A little small, but you'll be able to kind of see the shooting. So you'll see if I shoot, no bullets appear on this guy's client, and if I shoot here, none appear on here. And if I go to the third one, you'll see it only appears on the first guy. Perfect. So now our clients, our game lobbies are working in harmony. You can have multiple ones. You can have multiple games going. This is awesome. It's based on what the game settings are that you're playing. And hopefully that all sticks. Remember, check down below the GitHub if you need any help with any of the source code, because we changed a lot of it. If you're new to UI Canvas, hopefully you're able to follow the couple things that I was able to set up here. If not, check out my new series that will be coming out on UI Canvas and kind of just how to do Unity UI in general. And yeah, we'll see you guys for the next tutorial. Have to decide where we're going to go from here. We might do the bullet smoothly. We might do a couple other things, but when we get there, you guys will see that. That will be part 9. This video is massive, so it most likely is probably on YouTube as like part 8.2, 8.3. I haven't decided yet, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. And as again, we'll see you guys next time. Just wanted to make sure I give a nice shout out to the people over on Patreon that help me support and help me do Twitch and YouTube tutorials. So thank you, and you guys will be in the following list. Jaron Frost. Hey everyone, if you guys liked the video, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, give it a like, and make sure to comment. It really helps out. And if you guys are looking to support the project further, I also have my Patreon, which will be linked in the description down below. Thank you, and have a good day.